Hey everyone, Tad Larkin here with the annual Legends Mod The Clone Wars Progress Report, for the first time ever in video form, rather than just a ModDB article. This past year has been quite busy, both personally and professionally, with my wedding, honeymoon in New Zealand, and scrambling to finish my timeline overview series over on my YouTube channel, Manda-LORE. Surprisingly though, in the midst of all of this, I managed to make substantial progress on the development of the mod, and am really proud of what I accomplished this year. As per usual with my progress reports, I will break down what's been completed and what I'm currently working on at the time of writing this, and of course, share what I hope to accomplish in the coming months. Let's dive in. Space units, estimated completion 99%. As it stands right now, pretty much all planned and a few unplanned vessels for the CIS and Republic are in-game and operational. The last ship left to include is the MedStar class frigate, which I have a model for, I just have yet to implement it. Just like with the last progress report, this estimated completion does not take into account the non-playable Hutt and Pirate factions, which I have added to the game, but I haven't filled out their rosters with period-appropriate units yet. To get an idea of what space units are planned for the Hutts and Pirates, see last year's progress report. Please note, models for units, props, etc. that you see from here on out are either free release and properly credited on the mod's README file, secured permission for, or are serving as a placeholder until a model can be commissioned or acquired. Now, onto land units, estimated completion 98%. A bunch of new land units have been added since the last progress report, some of which have been on the roster, while others were added as models became available. I mostly have CIS land units left to add, which include the CB-3 Cortosis Battle Droid, the B-3 Ultra Battle Droid, and the DSD-1 Dwarf Spider Droid, as well as a few ground fighters. All that's left for the Republic is adding some ground-based fighters for air support, as well as the Blaze Troopers. Other than getting the Pirates and Hutts on the Galactic Conquest map, I haven't added any period-appropriate land units to their roster yet either. Moving on to heroes, estimated completion 70%. As you can see, since the estimated completion percentage remains unchanged from last year's progress report, I haven't added any new heroes yet. I've been focusing mainly on building the galaxy from the main sandbox Galactic Conquest, adding the remaining land and space units, and making maps. The other reason heroes haven't been worked on really is that the remaining heroes are minor heroes that will be recruited at buildings I haven't yet implemented, and some that are campaign specific, and will only show up in a specific campaign Galactic Conquest scenario. Speaking of Galactic Conquest, estimated completion is 14%. I didn't quite know what to put for the estimated completion on this category because, visually, a ton of progress has been made, but that progress has really only been in the main sandbox Galactic Conquest scenario, and none of the other sandbox or campaigns have been started yet. The good news is, the hundreds of new planets that I added are in their correct astrographical positions, which will greatly aid in constructing all of the other Galactic Conquest scenarios from here on out. Hyperlanes are also correctly mapped out, which I'm really proud of. So maybe 14% isn't entirely accurate, maybe it should be a little bit more, but I'm unsure. Moving on to maps, estimated completion 50%. A huge amount of progress has been made in the maps department, as most of last year, I spent weeks crapping out as many space maps as I could, so I could populate the Galactic Conquest map and get planets in their correct astrographical positions. Good space maps don't require nearly as much time to make as good ground maps, so I focused my efforts on space specifically. But a few ground maps have been brought over from some of my older mods and spruced up, because I was rubbish at making maps back then. I've also brought in a few ground maps from mods I've gotten permission to use, but I will still have to make a majority of the ground maps, as they are either not period correct or just not what I want for the specific planets. Buildings and mechanics. Buildings 95%, mechanics 15%. A bunch of new buildings and mechanics have been implemented since the last progress report. For example, the Senate building, with a build limit of 1 and only on Coruscant, has taken over the research facility's job. Instead of researching tech, you get to pass legislation, where senators will deliberate on 5 historical bills that correspond with a different time period of the war. which will in turn unlock new units and heroes that were prevalent during that time period. You start out with the Emergency Powers Act already passed, and with it, all Phantom Menace era tech is available to you. Next is the Military Creation Act. This is where you'll be able to build Grand Army of the Republic units and small amounts of clone troopers, which reflects the war's early months where only 1 million clone troopers were available. As you go on to pass the Reflex Amendment, Enhanced Security and Enforcement Act, and the Sector Governance Decree, more and larger clone trooper divisions will be available to you as you near the events of Revenge of the Sith. There are still a few more buildings I wish to add, such as the Republic Military Academy, CIS Military Academy, and the Dark Jedi Enclave, which will allow more minor heroes and special units to be recruited. There are more mechanics I'm looking to implement as well. Chiefest among them is a script that automatically changes all clone units to Phase 2 once a certain era is reached, as well as one that initiates Order 66 after certain conditions are met and unlocks Imperial units, but these are things that still require more research on my part. And finally, graphic interface, estimated completion around 80%. There isn't really a lot to say about the graphic interface. I honestly haven't touched it since last year, so the estimated completion remains the same. This is something that will be polished more towards the mod's final release date, whenever that may be. I did, however, add some new clicky sounds from the classic prequel-era games such as Republic Commando and Star Wars Battlefront to help bring the GUI into the prequel theme that the mod is going for. In terms of what I'm looking to accomplish this year, I'd really like to finish adding the last couple buildings, land and space units, and get most of, if not all, of the minor heroes in-game, as well as start making the pirates and huts more time period appropriate. I'd like to at least get the main Sandbox Galactic Conquest game around 80 to 90% done, and get started on some of the story-driven campaigns, but I'm highly doubtful. My biggest obstacle to completing these Galactic Conquest scenarios is ground maps. I'm pretty good at making ground maps, but they just take me a long time to make, and it's just me. I don't have anyone else making maps with me, so as much as I'd like to complete 100 ground maps this year, I'd be surprised if I get through 15. If you know how to make maps for Star Wars Empire at War and want to help me out, please contact me. I need help. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. I plan to continue making progress in between my Manda-LORE videos, so don't fret, this mod isn't dead, and I'm not gonna let it die anytime soon. Thank you. Tad Larkin. Out.